Good evening. There are several world leaders who are known for their dictatorial attitude while ruling their country, but they have been successful in bringing prosperity and progress to their country. Some of them were, not liked by the West, mostly the Middle East dictators, but no one has been as successful as Lee Kuan of Singapore. Listen to what Tony Blair has to say.
The fascinating thing about Lee Kuan Yew is he took three decisions, really three important decisions right at the beginning for Singapore. Each one of them now seems obvious. Each one at the time was deeply contested. Number one, he said, everyone's going to speak English in Singapore. Now, there were lots of people who said to him at the time, no, we need to have our own local language, we need to be true to our roots and everything. He said, no, English is the language of the world and we're all going to speak English. Today, that's what happens in Singapore. Secondly, he said, we're going to get the best intellectual capital and management capital from wherever it exists in the world, and we're going to bring it to Singapore. And again, people said, no, we should stand on our own 2 feet. Why? And you're also bringing in the British, who we've got all these disputes with. And he said, no, I'm going to bring in the best from wherever they are, and they're going to come to Singapore. Today, Singapore exports intellectual capital, right? And the third thing he did was he said there's going to be no corruption. And one of the ways we're going to do that is we're going to make sure our political leaders are well paid, which the Singapore leaders are the best paid in the world by.
One of the reasons Lee Kuan, or if we may add Putin and Xi to that line, they are successful, not so much Putin, but Xi has been successful over the last decade, is because they have a vision and they have been able to implement their policy with an iron hand. Lee Kuan over here, as Tony Blair points out, has been successful because, or had been successful because he had a plan and he implemented it with a force and waited for it to succeed. And he knew the size of Singapore, so he said we should always insist on English because we can only turn Singapore into a trading hub.
I am calculating not in terms of the next election. That's no trouble. 68, no trouble. I am calculating in terms of the next generation, in terms of the next 100 years, in terms of eternity. And believe you me, the next 1,000 years, we will be here. I won't be here, but people like me and like my friends here tonight will be here. Recognizable, identifiable, 1,000 years from hence.
Look at Singapore, how it was in the 50s, and look at Singapore, how it looks just now. This is all because of the successful implementation of these three policies of Lee Kuan. So English was made compulsory, which has helped Singapore evolve into a democratic modern nation. It has severed its ties from Indian settlers, from the Chinese settlers, and from the Malay and other Southeastern Asian settlers. It has evolved into a Singaporean state, even though it's very close to both Malaysia and Thailand and other countries. But today, and even for the last 2 decades, it has been one of the most powerful trading centers of the world. Now Dubai is evolving on the same lines. Now, after Manmohan Singh's death, we can always analyze his legacy and everything. One of the few things that failed Congress and failed Manmohan Singh was that even though he had a vision, he could not keep his flock under control. He had a vision. He knew what he wanted for the country. The nuclear agreement with US. The opening up of the domestic markets and other things like that. He knew what he wanted. At one time in the first decade of this century, India and China were shoulder to shoulder. But in that process, Narendra Modi emerged as the strong man that India wanted. So he could always compare himself with Manmohan Singh as the strong man emerging, while Manmohan Singh was referred to as Mohan Singh because he never said anything or never asserted himself either over the Gandhi family or the Congress party or even his allies. He had a method of working within his limits and without needling anyone. But Mr. Modi has come in with a huge agenda and with his own vision for this modern India. Now let us assess what he has achieved in the last 10 years. You have Kemal Atatürk of Turkey and you have Lee Kuan of Singapore to compare with. You could even bring in Mahathir of Malaysia in this picture because Mahathir also achieved a lot when Malaysia had sunk in debt and now it has emerged as one of the most powerful economies of Southeast Asia. So let's compare Mahathir, Kuan, Atatürk and now Narendra Modi. Let's not compare him with Xi because things are different in India and China or with Putin. But he has implied and implemented the same methods as all these leaders. So you have heard what Kuan achieved for Singapore. It's a small country, but you can't really compare the size, but you can compare the methods. So he had his, as Tony Blair says, he had his three visionary ideas. What did Modi bring to the table? His three main ideas, as we know in the last 10 years, and now those three ideas are accepted as, because we have become Vishwa Guru because of those three ideas. Number one was demonetization. Number two was scrapping of Article 370. And number three is building of Ram Temple. These three are touted as achievements of this strong Prime Minister that we have. Now let's see what demonetization brought to the country. Pre-demonetization, what was the rate of dollar? What was the rate of gold? Now, what's the rate of dollar and gold? What have we achieved through demonetization is very arguable because the same things, we are still fighting those same things, terrorism and black money, and black money has in fact increased, terrorism has not subsided, and cashless society is still a dream. Second thing is scrapping of Article 370. We have Kashmir today as a small union territory and Jammu and Ladakh. Ladakh is dissatisfied with its position. We have a continuous problem in Ladakh today.
On a 1,000-kilometer march to New Delhi, these protesters from the remote northern region of Ladakh say they will walk for 30 days to the Indian capital to demand their territory be given the right to govern itself. They also want more protection for the region's tribal areas.
The future of our children and Indian decision-making process, our futures are at stake. That's why it's a gentle reminder to the Modi government to restore his promise, to give his promise by granting 6th schedule for Ladakh, restoration of statehood for Ladakh.
Kashmir, the Chief Minister has become the Mayor of Kashmir, and Jammu, of course, still remains part of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. So Article 370, I don't know how much it has been able to achieve, because if the point was of ruling Kashmir through the governor, then it still continues. Pehle bhi people were posted as governors, and from Jagmohan to Manoj Sinha, everyone has ruled Kashmir as if they were rulers of Kashmir rather than democratically elected leaders. And the third thing, the achievement that all Hindus can be proud of is the Ram temple in Ayodhya. I don't know how the Supreme Court allowed it as a legal entity, but they have allowed it and the Ram temple has been built. Now let's assess, compare these people, leaders like Kaun and Mahathir, what they achieved for their country, brought prosperity to the whole nation, and let us see what has happened in India over the last 10 years. Have we achieved prosperity of the same level? Have we become a world power, or either in trade or in real terms or in military terms? Or are we on the right track to segregate spiritual leadership and temporal leadership? I'll leave the assessment to you. 10 years is a long time, and by the time Modi finishes, it will probably be 15 or 20 years. So, at least he is halfway to his whole reign, and let's see how much more does he achieve. Does he have a vision for the remaining years of his, of course, one vision we have seen is one nation, one election. So, how will that help in the long run remains to be seen. Thank you. Hindustan Zindabad.